Minister, you know that the Irish fishing fleet took a huge hit as a result of Brexit and the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement, a huge loss of fish. But it's about to get a whole lot worse with the imminent cuts to the mackerel quota. Mackerel is a prime fish species, really critical to so many jobs in Ireland. So I just want to get a sense of the government's plan and how to mitigate this and also to ensure that those who are recklessly overfishing are stopped urgently.
Minister.
Let's concur and thank Deputy MacLochlainn for raising what is a really significant and a very important issue. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the challenges facing the seafood sector in 2026 and the concerns felt across the industry arising from the scientific advice for 2026 for some of our most important fishing stocks, particularly mackerel, as you have outlined, Deputy MacLochlainn. I am aware of the seriousness and the impact this advice will have on the sector. Ireland has repeatedly raised overfishing of mackerel by some coastal states outside the EU over recent years. We raised the issue as an AOB at the October Council of Agriculture and Fisheries Ministers, calling for urgent action at EU level to protect our key pelagic stocks, and reiterated again this last week at the November Agri-Fish Council meeting. Minister of State Dooley and I will continue to highlight this critical issue for our fishers and to engage intensively with the European Commissioner for Fisheries and other Member States on possible actions to protect our stocks. At that November Council meeting, I also confirmed Ireland's intention to invoke the Hague preferences at the appropriate time, along with Minister of State Dooley. The Hague preferences give Ireland an increased share of important fish stocks, as you know, when TAC levels reduce below a specified level. It was made clear to Member States at the November Council meeting that the Hagues are a fundamental part of relative stability and have been recognised as such in the legal framework of the Common Fisheries Policy since 1983, when the CFP was first established. Most of the EU fish stocks for Ireland has quota are shared with third countries. The European Commission has sole competence to negotiate with third countries on behalf of the EU, and our priority is that the EU secures the best possible outcome for Irish fishing community, and that's why we continue to advocate, and the most important thing we do is use every channel diplomatically open to us to advocate, but also to explain the impact that previous fishing activity has had and on what the implications are for that for our fishing industry into next year.
Deputy MacLochlainn.
The difficulty, Minister, is that there are corporations based in the European Union who have invested in the fleets in Iceland, Faroe Islands, that have been recklessly overfishing. And my concern is that there has been a lack of political will as a result of their lobbying skills over the last number of years. We've been watching this slow-moving car crash. This is a precious species, mackerel. It's a migratory species. It spawns off the west coast of Ireland, works its way up to those northern waters. And to see it recklessly overfished to the point where we could lose it very, very soon is utterly heartbreaking. There are people who are hard-working, who took chances in this country, who built up a pelagic industry, and they have been betrayed by this failure to deal with this issue. So this is a matter of the most great urgency, and it goes to the heart of the need to really have a common fisheries policy that is just and fair to our people.
Minister.
Yes, and look, absolutely understand you articulate quite clearly the sense of injustice and the concern and the upset that there is. And you know, what we do is to use our voice within the EU, because the EU is the competent negotiator here in terms of that trade. And there are a lot of negotiations going on with third countries. The EU-UK negotiations began on the 4th of November and will continue until the first week of December. The EU-UK-Norway negotiations began on the 27th of October. The second round took place on the 17th to the 20th of November, and the third round is scheduled for the first week in December. The EU-Norway negotiations began on the 3rd of November, with the second round on the 24th to 27th of November in Oslo. At the Coastal States consultation on the TAC set in for mackerel, the EU, Norway, Iceland and Greenland were prepared to set the 2026 TAC in line with the ICES advice at 174,357 tonnes. However, the UK and Faroe Islands indicated that they needed more time, so there currently is no agreement of a TAC for mackerel, and the coastal states also agreed that TACs for blue whiting and ash in line with the ICES advice. So that's all ongoing, and our job is to input into the EU the very significant impact that this is having in Ireland.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. And I do appreciate the fact that we have a dedicated Minister of State for Fisheries, which has been a welcome development, who's engaging and listening to our fishing communities. And we now need to use that resource with all the knowledge, working hand in hand with the Irish industry to confront this injustice once and for all. You know, to say to the European Commission that what happened at Brexit was so wrong, that we did not have burden sharing, we carried so much of that weight. The UK, and I'm glad you mentioned them, are actually a party to this recklessness. They benefited from Brexit. They got an agreement which wasn't based on relative stability, track record. It was based on what's called zonal attachment, those communities closest to the fishing waters. So that's what we would love to have in Ireland. That's what Britain got. They can't have their cake and eat it. So this is about countries who I respect. You know, Norway, Faroe Islands, Iceland have nothing against their people, the British people. But this is reckless behaviour. It's unjust, unfair. We have to call it out. It has to stop. And we need to have fairness and justice. And we need to protect jobs, you know, in our vulnerable coastal fishing communities.
Minister.
Yes, Last Concordia, the Commission has indicated its intention of concluding the consultations in time for the Agri-Fish Council on the 11th and 12th of December. It's yet to be seen whether they're successful in that or not. But as we move towards that finalisation of setting 2026 fishing opportunities, my focus in that Minister of State duly over the coming weeks is to continue to work towards the best possible outcome for Ireland's seafood sector in 2026, one that ensures the sustainability of the stocks and a level playing field for our fleet. It's also important, I believe, to recognise the resilience and determination with which the sector has addressed challenges over recent years. The Government recognises that resilience and determination, and funding opportunities for the sector will continue to be delivered over the lifetime of Ireland's €258 million Seafood Development Programme, MFAF. I'll also continue to work with ministerial colleagues across government to assess what supports may be available to the seafood sector in the context of EU state aid rules and within the constraints of both national and union funding to support sustainability of the sector in 2026 and beyond. But to your core point, I absolutely accept it. Fishers want a fair deal here, and the job of myself, and I agree with you, having a Minister of State dedicated in this area is a positive thing. Minister Dooley has my full back in here. We work hand in glove in terms of making sure we both be out in Brussels together, making sure that we articulate very clearly the impact that these ICES have on our fishery community and get the best deal possible.